In doing a 6 1 hours, as far as shooting and the schedule and all that sort of stuff goes, it just feels the same as us having done the films. But the big change really was that we now have 3 different directors. I love the idea of taking what Andrew Knight and Matt Cameron and Andrew Anastasius write and going, oh, how about I give it this kind of inflection? Or if I just slightly change those words because they'll come out of my mouth a bit better for me. It's a really respectful relationship. And Andrew Knight said to me the very first day we walked into the table read, he said to me, you change anything you want to change. Make it work for you. And I went, oh, great, fantastic, okay, thanks. But seriously, there's nothing I need to change.
I was very excited to hear that we were going to do 6 episodes. And we've got an amazing dynamic of Australian cast in this. The crew, for me, they get best on ground in a lot of ways because they help bring this beautiful story to life. I mean, who would have thought, all the way from Alice Springs, and I get a great chance to work with all these fantastic storytellers.
The first script I read just blew me away. There's lots of layers in each of the scenes. You just fall into the characters, and there's this relationship there with whoever you're playing with that's really rich and exciting.
It's a very elaborate crime story. The drama's there, the wit is there, which is a gift for an actor, really. It's a whole exploration of anger and grief and injustice. It's a really great kind of acting marathon that I've been looking forward to doing since I read it.
The directors are no different from the cast and crew on this one, that they're the directors that I think are at the top of their game. The script is amazing, it really needs to punch along and they keep it moving, which is great. I've just realised this is actor talk, isn't it? I've got to say the word craft at some point. I haven't said it's the craft. As an actor, it's the craft, and I haven't spoken about the craft.
The material itself that we work with, that we give dramatic life to, it's got that interest and respect for the past. Andrew Knight said to me that he would remain faithful to the spirit of Peter Temple's work.
Yes. We are an ageing population. In fact, there are more of us, and there'll be many, many more to come, who are old. And hence, I do believe that not enough of us are reflected in the roles that are being written.
Yeah, I think you're right there too. Yeah.
It's interesting for me to observe the way Kieran and Dan and Mark have to work when a show's been established and a director then comes in and has to sort of work within a certain framework. So, like all good directors and any good performance that works with a good director, it's about communication and respect. Jack in the books is older, he's a bit more curmudgeon-y, etc. And I've brought a particular personality to the Jack that they've created. He's somebody who's driven by some sense of morality and justice. When we see him now in this miniseries that we've done, you don't kind of know what job he really has. He's not really a lawyer anymore. He's not really a private investigator, but he kind of does a little bit of all of these things. The character that Marta plays, Linda, who Jack's obviously had quite a sort of passionate on-again, off-again relationship with, that disbands at the beginning primarily because she goes overseas.
Linda, first and foremost, is a journalist. She wants to get right into a story and have it be a little bit edgy and dangerous and relevant. She thought that Jack was the love of her life, but then at the same time, love for her is a slippery word.
There is something about the relationship between Jack and Linda that's very automatic. They just kind of go, well, we may as well have a relationship. When it comes to talking about things on a more serious level, that's where Linda gets really frustrated with Jack.
She's very directed. She's very interested in her life. She doesn't stop for anyone. She actually doesn't have any idea that anyone could ever touch her when she's taken and she's threatened and she realises she's completely out of her depth. I found her really complicated, really sexy, really unforgiving, and yet had this ability when she did fall into something she didn't quite understand to be vulnerable and need help.
Harry Strang, he's an ex-horse trainer, ex-jockey, knows the racing world like the back of his hand. His most trusted lieutenant and friend is Cam.
Cam and Harry's relationship goes back a bit. Seems like it was cemented with the horses, and over the years there's always been this adventure that they go on, chasing the dollar in the horse, but also using their smarts to benefit themselves and their lives.
They know each other really, really well, so they're very, very, very close. It's a nice little sort of trio through the series because all these other things are happening to Jack and there's all this sort of bad stuff going on, and then focus when those three are together, it's all about the horses. It's a nice juxtaposition between what else is going on in Jack's life.
He's like a little brother that gets in trouble all the time and he's got to actually come and rescue him. The poor old guy, he's wearing all the bumps and taking all the scratches. Someone was saying that, Jack would have been gone a long time ago in the first series if it wasn't for Cam. I come out unscathed, brother.
It was a lovely surprise to be given this role of Cynthia. She's very good at what she does and she's one of Harry's, closest associates. So it was great to be given a role that wasn't specific to being Indigenous, really. That was the instant attraction for me. I can sort of be this really savvy, cool woman who's very much in a man's business. And I think that was really, really nice to see on paper.
Barry's an old school cop. He's one of those cops that gets the job done. He's a mate of Jack Irish's and he's go-to guy when he needs a bit of information. Does he always follow the rules? Probably not. Barry knows that Jack Irish is a good man. Quite often, if Jack spotted something that he thinks just isn't quite right out there in the community, there's a chance he's probably right. I'm trying to do things and help Jack out, all for the right reasons, but I'm crossing that line of not doing things by the book. Barry's very quick to tell someone to shove it up their arse if he thinks they've got something wrong. And to be honest, he'll tell someone to shove it up their arse just for the sake of it.
I play Simone Benston. She's got a very different tempo to Jack, so when we're in a scene together, you have to be careful to not absorb his energy. Her function is certainly that she is the go-to girl for Jack when he needs quick IT information. And her opinion is that, the stuff that she offers him is something a 5-year-old could do. It's just simply not his department. And she's used to doing much, much more intricate things than ever he asks her to do. But anything to, she's a computer geek. Get out, Guy Pearce. Get out.
I'm leaving right now.
In this one, there's a gorgeous scene where Jack disrupts Simone's wedding. For the same old reason, he needs her to get on the computer and get him some information quickly. But he disrupts her wedding. And I didn't really have to do anything particularly spectacular in the scene. Wedding's a disaster, so there's wind and rain and a gazebo that goes flying in the air. And visually they did a really nice job with it.
Well, I think all three of us belong to the Brotherhood of the Blue Singlet.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Sunburned, sweaty and staunch, yet long denied our rightful place in the national pride.
Yes.
Pop in over here.
There you go.
Sit here,
That's
mate.
good. Because,
No, we're right.
Look, I'm terrified that they're looking for me and they won't know where I am.
I'll find you.
What do we call ourselves? The League of Youth.
Well, the Fitzroy Youth Club. But
The Fitzroy Youth Club.
Legal youth sounds political.
It's definitely a world outside of Jack's normal world. I mean, it's a sort of place where he can come and feel safe, and we love him, and whatever, if he's mucked up or hasn't mucked up, we don't care. So he can come in and there's no judgment, and he can come and have a chat with us. And
Because we're the elders in his tribe. That's the way to think about it.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
and he occasionally
we
buys
offer
us
advice.
a drink, doesn't he?
He does too, yeah. And we have to offer advice in very diplomatic ways. I mean, you can't tell one of these young professionals they're how to do things, but you sort of lay out some possibilities, and and you just here and there drop a little hint, and he's a clever boy. He picks up on it.
And I like any scene in which we have to eat.
It's on again, is it? Yeah.
We nearly got a
Sims
pie
were all right
today.
last time.
The great things about the series for me was getting Claudia Carvin, my old friend, to come and work on the show. Claude's character of Sarah is this wonderful, volatile artist.
She has a sister who is in hot water and she's disappeared. So I tracked Jack Irish down to help her find her sister. She's got a lot of bad relationships in her past.
We see Jack falling for Sarah. She's really quite brutal with him. It's not a lovey-dovey kind of relationship, shall we say. One of the things about the writers is that they never want anything to be sentimental. We can have sadness and we can have drama and we can have really moving aspects to the story, but they don't want the characters to play that stuff. They don't want it to be soppy and overdone. There's a great sense of humour that exists in Jack's energy because he's concerned enough to sort of keep moving forward and try to figure things out, and he's got a sense of justice about him. He's somebody who's obviously experienced deep grief in his past, and so he's carrying some sort of heavy history, and he sort of does his best to avoid anything emotional whenever he can. He finds himself in all sorts of situations where he's either getting himself into trouble or he's trying to help somebody, and usually it brings up some of that past emotional stuff for him. And he's very aware of the underdog, and he's very aware of people being hurt, and he's very aware of himself being hurt, but the way in which he dances around it I find really interesting.
It's wonderful every year to get back and have this gig because...
What are we doing next year?
Well, hopefully another one.